We'll be looking at 1 Peter 1, first couple of verses, then we'll be flipping over to chapter 2 and verse 9. Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to God's elect, exiles scattered throughout the provinces of Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia and Bithynia, who have been chosen according to the foreknowledge of God the Father through the sanctifying work of the Spirit, to be obedient to Jesus Christ and sprinkled with his blood. Grace and peace be yours in abundance. But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you hadn't received mercy, but now you have received mercy. Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires which wage war against your soul. Live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us.
Whether you're joining us remotely from somewhere around God's world or whether you're in the room, at some point in the summer, perhaps you've already done it, at some point in the summer, I reckon most of us will travel to somewhere out of the ordinary. Okay, we're going to go somewhere out of the ordinary. Often our holiday will begin something like the image on the screen, which is chaos and the M25, which is known as the car park. We're on our way to Dover. It doesn't get any better there, and maybe you're just glad that your aircon works, or you're regretting you didn't get it serviced. Those are one of the two statements that you make in your mind if you're something like me. But you've done the planning, you've done the packing, and you've prepared for a journey. And at the end of the journey, there's a destination. It could be to see a loved one. It could be to explore somewhere new. It could be somewhere with guaranteed sunshine. Or the northern part of the hemisphere, something just a bit cooler. That's increasingly where people are traveling, so I hear. That theme of journey is central, if not the central theme, to the book of 1 Peter. There is a destination that every Christian is heading for. This book was written 30 years, almost precisely 30 years after the death of Jesus. And as it says in chapter 1, verse 1, it's written by a man called Peter. Is this the same Peter who, yes, it's the same Peter who he had foot and mouth disease. He jumped out of the boat, he ran to Jesus sinking. He's the same one who was quick with his hands, who drew his sword and chopped off someone's ear because his aim was bad. He's the same Peter who denied Jesus, although he said he never would. It's the same Peter who Jesus lovingly cooked a barbecue of fish at the end of John's Gospel and restored him. It's the same Peter who had foot and mouth disease, who Jesus restored, and upon whose testimony a lot of the church was built. It's the same Peter. So there's hope for us all. I want us to consider this theme. The central theme of the book is this principle of journey. Hope amidst a journey to a certain destination. Number one, let's think about the theme of the book. Chapter 1, verse 1, the theme. The theme of the book, to God's elect, exiles scattered throughout the provinces. And then you've got chapter 2, verse 11 as you turn over. Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles. This word scattered, as you can see from the map on the screen, the church is scattered. We have Peter, who's in Rome under house arrest, and he's writing to the churches that we read of in chapter 1, verse 1 and into verse 2. But this word scattered is the word diaspora, which is often literally a word that you would use with seed or with people, that you've got some grass seed in your hand and you want to throw it to reseed your lawn or something like that. That's what God has done to his people in the Old Testament. The Jewish people were scattered. The diaspora, they've been scattered throughout the world. They're no longer in their homeland. And now Peter takes that word and applies it to the New Testament church, to the scattered ones, to the ones that through persecution God has scattered from Jerusalem, as he said he would, Acts chapter 1 verse 8, to the ends of the earth. And God is doing what he said he would do, as he always does. He says we're all exiles. And because we're all exiles, chapter 1, verse 1, Peter is saying, therefore, if you are exiles, you must live as exiles. So you're not surprised when suffering comes. You're not surprised when false teaching comes. But remember, this world is not your home. You are on a journey to a certain destination. You're exiles, so live as exiles. It's the key theme to the book. Not only that, verse 1, the word exile means staying for a while in a strange or a foreign place. I do like that. Staying for a while in a foreign land that's not your home. Some of us have done this. Joe and I did it with the kids. We lived in a country that we thought was the same as ours. But someone has said, and we agree, it is possible to have two countries separated by a common language. You know what I mean? If this part of the world is not your home, if you are here for a while, if you are, old word alert, sojourning through, that's something that can be very helpful to your Christian understanding of a journey that we're on. You know what it's like. You live in a country that's not your own. There's a tension in your spirit that you can't quite put your finger on. This is what I mean. So you're a citizen, you're not a citizen of the country, but you're not quite a tourist. Okay, you're not a citizen, but you're not a tourist. You live there. Maybe you've bought a home here. Maybe you're renting a place for a few years. Perhaps you're in the country on a visa to work or to study. And yet, you're not expected to stay forever. There's some hoops you need to jump through. You're part of the society, you have a job, you know the language perhaps, but you don't share all their customs. So you're just a passing through. You can enjoy the food and the music, you can see the art and appreciate different events in society, but it's not your home. All of that truth is in the word exiles in verse 1. It's a very specific word that Peter chooses to use. And he applies it not just to Old Testament Israel. He said what's true of Old Testament Israel is true now of every Christian. You're scattered in a foreign land that's not your home. Every Christian is a citizen of heaven, and yet we're residents here. We're resident aliens. That's a phrase that you hear in American culture. Now, what does that mean? Two implications from this first sentence of the book. Two implications. Number one, I want us to think about a word that's not in the passage, a pilgrim. Rooted, you had a superb opportunity to read Pilgrim's Progress last year. It was for many, many centuries the second best-selling book in the whole world after the Bible. But here's some implications, please, from this first word. We don't think about this half enough in the modern church, I'm convinced of it. Every Christian, you and me, if you're a Christian here this morning, we're on our way home. But that means that this world is not our home. The minute you become a Christian, you are wholly pardoned. You're forgiven. You're completely accepted, and you're wholly loved in Jesus. That's your status. Undeniable. It's a truth that transforms. It's a truth that inspires and a truth that gives hope for the future. But here's the tension. You have not yet arrived at your destination. You're journeying, you're pilgriming, you're sojourning, and you have begun a journey home, but you're not there yet. When we talk about the Christian life being one of pilgrimage, it means that we're in exile. We have one foot in the world, but one foot in the future. And so that means in your Christian life, if you're just a passing through, if this world is not your home, the Christian life will be a time of struggle. There'll be things in your life that perhaps you never master, besetting sins that you always struggle with. But you know that you're a Christian, and you know that you're completely loved, but you understand that you're not yet home. But one day you will be. Now, to understand this theme of being an exile and a stranger, you need to understand what being home is. There's a gift that I found on the computer this week. When you travel, when you're longing to get away from home, one of the best things about going on a holiday for me, being an old geezer, is that you get to come home. You spend all this energy and effort making your bedroom just the way you want it to be. You might change linen really regularly. You have your pillow that's so perfect for you that you may even put it in your luggage, even if it costs you £50 for extra carriage charges. It's not too hard, it's not too soft, it's just right. Premier Inn can't get it right. Airbnb can't get it right. But you just can't wait to get home when you've journeyed away from home. This picture of longing to be home when you're on a journey, when you're in a foreign land, that is helpful and it's completely biblical. And the Bible says that although you can try and make your home as nice as you can do with the resources you have, although it's nice to go and experience different culture and food and place and time, although it's nice to experience the sun on your back and late nights, actually there is a deep longing that no journey can satisfy on earth. Because we long to be at rest and we long to be completely loved. And no place in this world will satisfy that longing. The Bible is full of this truth. We're on a journey to a destination. This world is not our home. Think of Genesis 12. Leave your country and go. Abraham is exiled from his home. Think of Exodus chapter 1. The people of God, God's people, the Jewish people, Israel, they're in Egypt. They're exiles. Think of the truth that we read of in the prophets, where Israel are in exile once again in Babylon. But that's all Israel, you're saying. That's all Israel. Well, Israel is a picture of the human race. And to rewind even further, back to the first pages of the Bible, that's where the exile begins. Adam and Eve, our first parents, what did they lose? Because of their decision to disobey God, to trust themselves, to live under what they thought would be a better self-rule, they lost everything good. They lost love. They lost home. They lost paradise. So their earthly journey was now full of death and loss and evil always appearing to be on top. This world is not our home. And Peter wants us to understand that. Chapter 1, verse 1. To all you people that through suffering and persecution under the Roman Empire have been scattered, just like Israel in the Old Testament. You are not home. You are journeying as pilgrims to a certain place that will satisfy the every longing of your heart. And if you don't believe in God this morning, if you don't believe in the truth of the Bible, how come, therefore, that you are so unhappy in this world? If this world is all there is, if this world is truly home to us, how come it doesn't fit our longings? That doesn't add up. The Bible says this is the reason. Psalm 90. Psalm 90 says it's God who is our dwelling place. It's God who fulfills the longings of our hearts. It's God whose arms we want to embrace, whose face we want to see, whose presence will only satisfy us. God alone gives us the true reality of home. And we're journeying to a place that will satisfy every longing of our heart. Why? Because that's where he is. It's a foretaste now. It's a truth that we'll experience in its reality in the future. Someday, God will return. Every wrong will be right. He will get rid of death. Suffering will be no more. And he will make this world home again. He won't take us away. He will bring us into the new reality of the new heavens and the new earth. He'll fix everything. And then, and only then, will be truly home. It's a long introduction, but the Christian life is a pilgrimage. Verse 1 of chapter 1. You are homeward bound. You're on a journey, and you will not understand your life on earth until you understand that truth. This world is not our home. Here's the second one. It's actually in the passage. Verse 1, exile. Exile, this word again that's so important. It helps us understand if we are exiles in this land, does that mean therefore that we should get angry at the world in which we live? Does that mean therefore that we should separate from the world in which we live? How do we live in connection to the world of which we call our temporary home? Miroslav Volf is a Croatian theologian. We've used some of his thinking before. He says this in his book on identity. On identity, he says, in traditional cultures, your identity is grounded in your family. It's grounded in your race. It's grounded in your blood. In Western cultures, your identity is found in how much money you earn. It's found in your employment and work. I'm a good medic. I'm an artist. I choose to be a stay-at-home parent. I worked in this area and now I'm retired, but I still longed actually to be back at work because I got some approval from that setting. But this is what he says. The minute you become a Christian, the source of your value and your security becomes far more secure and far more deeply rooted in Jesus. It doesn't mean that you stop being a medic. It doesn't mean you stop being a teacher. It doesn't mean you stop being a taxi driver. But this is what he says. He says Christians have stepped, as it were, with one foot outside their own culture, while with the other remaining firmly planted in it. It's very important to see. You've stepped, as it were, with one foot outside of our own culture, while the other one remaining firmly planted in it. We're resident aliens. We're not a group of believers who are angry towards everything in the world. We're not going to assimilate and just accept everything in the world. We understand who we are in Jesus. Our identity is secure. Our destination is certain. So Christianity is not a fight to or flight from one's culture. It's living within it. It's living within it, knowing who we are. And it doesn't matter if you're 82 or if you're 12. It doesn't matter if you're retired or in the workplace. The deepest source and the surest source of your identity is in Jesus. So you're the different people, and yet you're the same on the outside. It's a nuanced position. We live as resident aliens. Chapter 1, verse 1, we are exiles. That's the theme of the whole book. That's the theme of the whole book. But then there's a test, moving on, point number 2, the test. Here's the test. If that's who we are, we're exiles, 1 foot in the world, 1 foot in heaven, as it were. How do we know if you're actually living like that? How do you know if you're living like that? That's the theme. Here's the test. It's there in chapter 2, verse 11 and 12. Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. There it is. 2 things that you can test yourself on that happen at the same time as you live and speak for Jesus. Did you see that in verse 12? You will be accused of doing wrong, but also they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. There we go, verse 12. First of all, if you live for Jesus, you're going to be accused. You're going to be accused. You will be misunderstood. People will be offended by how you live and what you say. They'll think you're odd, strange. You may have joined a cult. They think you're dangerous. That's all there in verse 12 of chapter 2. On the other hand, same verse 12 of chapter 2, they will see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. What does it mean to live good lives? Such is what we're called to do. And some people in every culture, if you live following Jesus' principles, following his truth, adhering to his teaching, they will be offended by what you say and stand for. But other people from the same position, after you said the same things, will see the beauty of Jesus. That's the tension. And some of them will come to the Lord Jesus in faith. What Peter is saying here is nothing new. Many people, I've read a few this week, think that Peter is riffing off what Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, which you can read in Matthew chapter 5. He's alluding to what Jesus said. Jesus says to his disciples, come and follow me. This is what my manifesto is in my kingdom. But you will be persecuted if you follow me. And then Jesus says, you are a light of the world. Therefore, let your good deeds shine forth. It's almost the same words, so that the pagans, the non-Christians, may see your good deeds and glorify God. It's the same sentence. And Peter and Jesus are saying the same thing. If you live your life for the priorities of Jesus and the certainty of heaven, you will offend some and you will attract other people. You will be compelling to some people. Others will be very, very critical of you. And yet, when the church lives like this, it will grow exponentially. Well, what are the good deeds that you kind of skipped over? What does that look like? Well, just think of 4 that the early church were known for. Here's the first one. I'll go quick. Forgiveness. If you live towards other people with a spirit not of vengeance but of forgiveness, you will stick out like a sore thumb. Jesus says, don't repay evil with evil, but overcome evil with good. Are you nuts? If you live like that, won't society just fall apart? They won't fall apart. It's very alluring, it's very attractive to be gracious and to forgive those who have wounded you and harmed you. It's unique to Christianity. Here's the second one after forgiveness, is generosity. The early church were renowned for generosity, not just to their own, but to anyone who needed it. They sold what they had, they brought it to the feet of the apostles, and they distributed as according to the need that they had. It wasn't about generosity only to their own. It wasn't just in terms of race or gender. Across social class, across capacity, across talent or lack of it, everybody has dignity, and so it was generosity to all people. Here's the third thing, death and suffering. Forgiveness, generosity, death and suffering. Christians could look death in the eye, and not in an inane sense, but they could smile or laugh at death because of the certainty of the resurrection. None of their neighbors had that resource because they didn't know Jesus. Here's the fourth one, forgiveness, generosity, death and suffering, sex. Sex. The Greeks thought that the body wasn't important at all. Sex was just an appetite. So if you want to have sex, you can have sex with whoever you want, whenever you wanted to. It's just an appetite, just an itch that you need to scratch. Christianity came along and said, no. We have a completely different understanding of sex. It's very precious. It's precious and should be enjoyed only within marriage. And it's completely radical. It changed society. Sex is for marriage between a man and a woman alone. And do you know what happened? As the early church lived out the teaching of Jesus, they were both very offensive to people and they were very attractive to people. And the church grew exponentially. It was persecuted. Thousands of Christians were killed. Tens of thousands were killed. And yet it grew and grew and grew. How are you doing, friends, against that test? I have to say most Christians fall into either they're really, really offensive and not very attractive as they speak. They speak with a lack of grace, lots of truth, but very little grace. That's not wise. Other people are very attractive because they're not offensive. They just kind of go on the back seat. They're grey people who no one would notice. Friends, I wonder if you are offensive, or are you attractive, or are you wise as you live for Jesus? That's the theme of the book. We're pilgrims, we're exiles. That's the test. How are we living before our neighbours and loved ones under our own roof? And if we're to live like that, where do you get the power? That's the third point. Where do you get the power to live like this? Because it takes tremendous courage, tremendous compassion to live up to this calling as elect exiles. So where do we get the resources to live like that? Well, again, I'm afraid there are two things to see. Chapter 2, verse 9. Two things to see. This is a very famous sentence that has 4 statements as Peter is describing the importance of the church. You're a chosen people, chapter 2, verse 9. You're a royal priesthood. You're a holy nation. You're God's special possession. It's a very, very rich sentence. First of all, you're a chosen people. Notice as we started our service, quoting from Deuteronomy 7, Peter is not saying you're the choice people. You're not the choice people. You're not the best. You're not people of status and prowess. You're a chosen people. Deuteronomy 7, with which we began our service. The Lord did not set his heart, his affection on you and choose you because you were more numerous than other peoples. For you were the fewest of all peoples. But it was because the Lord loved you. Here is God who says this. I didn't choose you because you were the choice, the impressive, the best. You didn't have the best CV. I just loved you because I love you. Out of the whole earth, the whole cosmos, I choose you. It's unconditional love, and it's the only love that we can possibly live with. It's the love that we look for in all the wrong places, but it's sheer grace. You are chosen. You're not choice, but you're a chosen people. You're not the best in your class. You're a chosen people. And because of that, we can go to the fourth statement that says this, chapter 2, verse 9. You're God's special possession. Yes, you are. That means you're his treasure. That means you're his most precious possession. It's like the word is for heirloom, for something, a precious locket that your great-grandma passed down through the family, and you've got it. And if the house was going to burn down, that's the one thing you would run towards to get. It's something that you would keep in a jewelry box, like a tie pin that your granddad gave you, or an old wedding ring. It's worth as much, this precious possession, as everything else in your home added up. That's how precious this thing is. Now that's the word that you see here. But this is not the first time that we've heard this phrase, is it? Exodus 19, God is speaking to Israel. Don't touch Mount Sinai. No one can touch it and live. And yet God, the God of all the world, says this. Even though I own the whole world, you, Israel, are my treasured possession. I know what you've done. I've known how shady Abraham and Isaac and Jacob that we've been looking at. I know what you're going to do next, which is you're going to build a golden calf. But I choose you. You are my treasured possession. I own all the galaxies, but none of them mean anything to me more than you do. Now that's what Peter writes, saying that is true for every Christian in his church. Now there's the resources that we need to enjoy and meditate on. How do you know that you are loved like that? How do you know that you are chosen by God's grace in spite of yourself? Have you grasped that truth? There is no other truth. Well, look at chapter 1, verse 2. How can you know that you are this loved? Chapter 1, verse 2 says that Jesus Christ was sent by the Father. He experienced the ultimate exile. He was home. He was in the bosom of the Father, and yet he left home and he came to earth to choose a people, to redeem a chosen people. Chapter 1, verse 2. Ever notice that Jesus was in exile through his whole earthly life? Foxes have holes, birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. It's a physical metaphor of our exile, you could say. He got the exile that we deserved so that we could be brought home, so that we could be accepted. So the next time you're tempted to speak, and sometimes you can be harsh rather than compassionate, look at Jesus. Next time you think there's an opportunity for me to testify about Jesus and speak about the ethics of the Christian faith, you're afraid, you're looking for courage, you're not sure if you can open your mouth, look at him. Here's what you need to do. Lord Jesus, I want to live for you because you were exiled for me. Bring me home. Father, accept me because of what Jesus has done. And then bit by bit, as the years increase and go by, though you're still a pilgrim journeying home, you're experiencing worship, through prayer, through fellowship, just foretastes of home and heaven. Foretastes of his presence. And then that homesickness in our heart slowly but surely gets cured. And that you know that someday, probably with death, you will wake up and you're able to say this: I'm home at last. This is where I belong. This is the land I've been looking for all my life, and I never knew it. Home at last for every pilgrim. Let's pray.